My mom looked me dead in the eye, threw a stack of legal documents onto my kitchen island, and said, "She has kids, you don't. Sign the house over to your sister, or you are no longer part of this family." Behind her, a moving truck was already backing into my driveway, filled to the brim with my sister's furniture. They hadn't even waited for my answer. When I calmly refused, my mother didn't just yell. She slapped me right in front of the realtor they brought along, while my dad loudly declared I was dead to them. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked at the transfer deed, looked at my smug sister smiling from the passenger seat of the truck, and smiled right back. Because what my family completely forgot is that I didn't just buy this house. I bought the land it sits on too. My name is Paige. I'm 27 years old, and until 5 days ago, I was the invisible daughter in my own family. If you grow up in a household with a golden child, you know exactly how this story goes. My older sister, Haley, could do absolutely no wrong. She spent her 20s drifting from one terrible decision to the next, relying on credit cards she couldn't pay off, and expecting everyone else to clean up her mess. When she had 3 children with a man who walked out on her, my parents didn't hold her accountable. They put her on a pedestal. Meanwhile, I was the daughter who worked 2 jobs while putting myself through college. I didn't ask for handouts, and I didn't complain. For the last 6 years, while Haley was out partying and treating our parents' bank account like an open ATM, I was living on ramen noodles and saving every single penny. 2 years ago, that sacrifice finally paid off. I bought a beautiful, 4-bedroom suburban house entirely on my own. My parents didn't celebrate my success. Instead, my mother looked around my brand new living room, sighed, and said it was a shame such a big space was being wasted on a single, childless woman. They always resented that I had built stability while their favorite daughter was drowning in debt. But I never could have predicted the sheer entitlement that resentment would breed, or the trap they were setting for me. The reality of that entitlement hit me on a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting at my kitchen island, working on a project, when the heavy rumble of a diesel engine shook my front windows. I pulled back the blinds and froze. A massive commercial moving truck was backing directly into my driveway. Behind it, my parents' sedan pulled up to the curb, followed by a sleek crossover I didn't recognize. Before I could even process what was happening, my front door flew open. In walked my mother, holding a thick manila folder, followed closely by my father and a man in a sharp suit who carried a leather portfolio. My mother didn't offer a greeting. She just marched over and slammed the folder down on the counter. "Haley is facing eviction, Paige," she announced, her voice dripping with an authority she had no right to claim. "She has 3 kids, and you don't. You're swimming in extra space you don't even use." The man in the suit stepped forward, introducing himself as a local realtor and a close friend of my father. He opened his portfolio to reveal a pre-drafted quitclaim transfer deed. They expected me to simply sign my asset away. Outside, the back of the moving truck rolled open, and 2 movers began lifting Haley's heavy oak dresser toward my garage. They hadn't even bothered to ask. They truly believed that my single status meant my hard-earned life belonged to them. I looked from the transfer deed to the realtor, and then directly at my mother. "I am not signing this," I said, my voice completely flat. "And you need to tell those movers to put everything back in that truck right now." The temperature in the room instantly plummeted. My mother's face contorted into an ugly mask of pure rage. "How dare you!" she shrieked, stepping closer. "Your sister is going to be homeless with 3 children, and you're sitting here playing selfish games. You don't deserve this house anyway." Before I could even blink, her hand swung out and cracked loudly across my left cheek. The physical shock of the slap echoed through the quiet kitchen. The realtor shifted uncomfortably, looking at the floor, while my father stepped forward to back my mother up. He pointed a finger aggressively at my face. "You are a cold-hearted, selfish monster, Paige," he shouted, his voice booming out into the driveway where the movers had stopped to watch. "As of right now, you are dead to this family. We are cutting you out completely. Don't you ever call us for anything again." They stormed out of the house, slamming the front door so hard the glass rattled. Through the window, I watched them climb into their cars and speed away, leaving the moving truck to drive off next. But they didn't take Haley's furniture with them. They left it all piled high inside my garage, completely blocking my car. They thought they had broken me, but they had just given me a war. I stood in my kitchen for a long moment, the sting on my cheek fading into a cold, sharp focus. They thought they had backed me into a corner, but they had completely forgotten who they were dealing with. When I bought this property 2 years ago, I didn't just buy a house blindly. The listing was unique. It was a large, irregular suburban lot that included a long, private asphalt access road running along the western edge of the property line. Furthermore, I had privately acquired the secondary commercial plot directly behind it, which just so happened to be the exact land where my parents leased the structure for their local commercial supply business. They thought I was just an invisible daughter playing house, but I was their landlord and the legal owner of their logistics lifeline. I walked over to my security monitor and reviewed the footage. The entire incident, the trespassing, the coercion, Haley's furniture being dumped into my garage, and my mother's physical assault, was captured in crystal clear, high-definition video. The realtor they brought along was a family friend named Dominic, and his license was about to be in severe jeopardy. I pulled out my laptop and immediately emailed a copy of the footage to my attorney, along with a formal request to draft a cease and desist order for Dominic for attempting legal coercion and fraud. Next, I dialed the local police department to report a case of illegal dumping, trespassing, and domestic assault. I wasn't the scared little girl they used to manipulate and ignore. I had the deeds, I had the laws, and I had the evidence. They wanted to publicly cut me out of the family? Fine. But they were about to find out exactly what happens when you try to steal from the person who holds all your cards. The very next morning, the legal trap I had set began to snap shut with absolute precision. I started with the physical mess they had left behind. The local police arrived at my house, reviewed the high-definition security footage of the trespassing, and documented the assault. With the police report in hand, I called a licensed commercial towing and liquidation company. Since Haley's heavy furniture had been illegally dumped on my private property to intimidate me, it was legally classified as abandoned. The company backed their flatbeds into my driveway and hauled every single piece of her oak furniture away to an impound lot. If Haley wanted her belongings back, she would have to pay thousands of dollars in storage fees and fines. But that was just the opening move. The real damage was done on the western edge of my property line. I contacted a heavy fencing contractor and paid a premium for emergency installation. By noon, a crew was erecting a massive, heavy-duty commercial steel security gate directly across the private asphalt access road. My parents had used this exact road for the last 10 years as the sole logistics and delivery route for their commercial supply business, completely taking my ownership of the land for granted. By cutting off that private road, their delivery trucks could no longer reach their warehouse, effectively freezing their entire business infrastructure and daily distribution network overnight. I also had my attorney send an official notice to their business address, informing them that as the landlord of their secondary commercial plot, their lease was being reviewed for immediate termination due to illegal activity. They thought they could compromise my home security and financial stability without any consequences. Instead, they had completely paralyzed their own livelihood. By the 5th day, the initial silence from my family shattered into a spectacle of absolute, unadulterated panic. The high and mighty attitude they displayed in my kitchen was entirely gone, replaced by the reality of a freezing business and an impounded life. This is exactly when the floodgates opened. The situation shifted completely, and 5 days later, they were calling me 124 times a day. I sat calmly at my kitchen counter, sipping my morning coffee, watching my phone screen light up continuously with an endless barrage of missed calls, urgent voicemails, and increasingly frantic text messages from my mother, father, and Haley. The tone of their messages had flipped from aggressive demands to desperate begging. My dad left a voicemail weeping about how their commercial supply trucks were lined up on the main street, unable to bypass my new steel security gate, costing them tens of thousands of dollars in canceled contracts every single hour. Haley sent a string of texts panicking because she couldn't afford the exorbitant impound fees to retrieve her furniture, leaving her children's clothes and belongings locked away in a liquidation warehouse. My mother, the very woman who had slapped me across the face and publicly disowned me just days prior, was now sending paragraph after paragraph of synthetic apologies, pleading with me to be the bigger person and open the access road for the sake of the family. They were finally realizing that the single, childless daughter they spent years treating as an invisible convenience held the absolute power to ruin their entire existence. I didn't answer a single call. I simply let the phone ring, allowing them to sweat under the weight of their own greed. On the 6th day, I finally held a meeting, not at my house, but safely behind the closed doors of my attorney's office. My parents and Haley arrived looking completely broken, the smugness entirely drained from their faces. Through my lawyer, I laid out my non-negotiable terms. To keep their business from collapsing, they were forced to pay my full legal fees, reimburse every penny for the gate installation, and sign a strict, ironclad boundary agreement. Haley was forced to pack up and move into a tiny, distant apartment she could actually afford. Once the papers were signed, I blocked their numbers and cut contact with them permanently. They wanted to cast me out because I didn't have children, but they ended up losing the only daughter who actually had her life together. Now, I'm curious about you who listened to my story. What would you do if your own family tried to pull a stunt like this? Would you have signed the papers, or would you have fought back like I did? Comment your thoughts below. And meanwhile, check out these other 2 stories on the screen. They will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching.